All right, what's up? It's a new day and I have to admit defeat. I was not able to remove the spring from the shock using the DIY methods that I heard about online. Of course, people said it would be so easy. It was not. So instead of faffing around and wasting more time, I just went and found the proper solution. Let me show you. I went on Amazon and I bought the proper tool for it. I got a spring compressor, I think it's called. So you loop it onto the actual spring, and then when you tighten it down, it clamps it together and compresses the spring. So now that we know what we're doing, we have to take the bike apart again. This has to be a sick joke. All right, what's up? It is another day because I'm still trying to replace a spring on the Ultra B, and I found a spring compressor on Amazon, but it turns out it was designed for car springs, not motorcycle springs. Yes, I'm an idiot. And the issue with that was that the actual hooks that would grab onto the spring were way too large to fit inside a spring for a dirt bike. So what I did, returned that, and I went out and got specifically a motorcycle spring compressor. So what it looks like, they're all branded, but they just come from China. Much smaller, quite a simple design. Twist that, compresses these two hooks, which will then be attached to the spring. So let's get back to it. Let's give it a shot. There's 3 bolts attaching the shock to the bike. Here, here, here. Start with the top one. So this is a 14 millimeter. Whenever I take a bolt out that has a nut, just put it on so you don't lose it, make your life easier. Now that bolt's out, you can see it's coming free. So we have 2 more here. So the top one is for the triangle. The bottom one is for the linkage. We're gonna do the triangle first. This is also a 14 mil. So we pull it off. You're gonna wanna lift the swing arm a bit. And then, now you have that out, triangle is free. You're gonna want to finish off the last bolt. So just note for this last one, you will need something to hold the end bolt or end nut on it. Oh my God, these are tight. All right, now I've got the top bolt off and the triangle is completely loose, and now the linkage is completely loose. So you can just pull the shock right out. All right, there we have it. So when you're doing this, you want to put the spring compressors on directly opposite sides on the spring, and it's best to put them perpendicular to the reservoir, just so you have enough room to actually, move around, get the tools in there. And when you're doing this, you want to do a little bit on each side at a time, just going back and forth. Just slowly compress the spring as evenly as you can. Oh, man, this is gonna take a while. All right, so I'm about halfway there, and you can see how far down the spring's already come. We need to be able to get far enough to pull this top collar off. You can tell because it's got this, this groove in the middle to slide out, so we need to get it down quite a bit further. So something I noticed, as I'm cranking them down, they've moved closer and closer together. I'm not sure how to prevent that from happening. I'm just trying to hold it as much as I can. Oh, thank God. All right. So now you can see the spring is compressed enough to actually move it, to be able to pull this top collar right off. So I will need to take off these this linkage to be able to pull the spring off, I think. Nope, need to take it off. Like everything else on this bike, it is so goddamn tight. All right, now we can finally pull that off. Jeez. Taking a look at this shock, especially compared to full-size dirt bikes, man, this thing is tiny. Like everything about this, the reservoir, the piston. All right, new spring. Who knew? Specialized tools made exactly for the job actually work. Old spring, gone. Now for the new spring. So what I picked up, this is a 550-pound spring, whereas the stock I believe is 450. So extra 100 pounds. And the spring weight, just to let you know, is how much weight it would take to compress the spring 1 inch. So that means it would take 550 pounds to compress the spring 1 inch. Anyways, so now I need to compress this so that I can slide it on and be able to fit the collar back on. All right, now that we've got the spring compressed, I think that should be enough, but now's a good time. So you have your preload rings here. This is the actual preload ring, and this is just the collar that keeps it snug. So when the bike comes from the factory, it's usually all the way out with no preload, which is part of the reason why the spring feels so soft. But a good idea is to bring the preload down a little bit to a neutral position. Probably if you had it set up for the old spring, you're gonna wanna loosen it off a bit. So it doesn't have to be exact, just to make your life easier, because once the spring is on, these are incredibly difficult to turn because you have the entire force of that spring pushing against it. So I think there should be good for now, and then we can adjust that later. So let us see if this is enough to actually go on. I think we're gonna be good. Slip that collar on. Oh, there's just enough room. Whew. All right, now we have the new spring partially installed. Let's take off these compressors. As you're decompressing the spring, you just want to make sure that the collar actually lines up with the spring. If it's off on an angle a bit, it might be more difficult. So I don't know if you can see there. It would catch on the inside lip. You just want to make sure it's actually seated properly. Pretty much done. Check it out, back in place. I love the way that this black looks, especially with the rest of the bike. I like it way more than the white. Just something to note with these KKA springs, I already notice a bunch of scuffs and scratches. There's a gouge there. So these KKA springs, I think the coating on the outside is pretty garbage, but hopefully this is the last time we're going to be wrenching on this. So let's start putting it back together. Good habit for these smaller bolts that are keeping on the plastics, the controller, everything on the frame. It's good to throw a bit of Loctite on these. There are torque specs that you could follow if you've got a torque wrench. Mine is out of commission at the moment, so I'm just doing these hand tight, but like tight. Whew. All right, and there we have it. That is how you change the rear spring on a Surron Ultra B. So a couple things to keep in mind. You definitely want the specialized tool to compress the spring. Apparently it's possible to do it without it, but I couldn't figure it out. Make your life easier, spend the 70 bucks. And now the only thing left is to set the sag, get everything set up properly. You're ready to ride.